I'm Andy Contaglia, your corporate casual Denver-based business attorney, bringing you the Don't Skip the Legal podcast, where you can listen in on the real stories, the real stakes, and the real legal lessons from real business owners just like you. These behind-the-door conversations about business are instrumental to your success. This is where the deals are made, negotiations are discussed, and company problems are identified, leading you to overcoming the challenges we all face in our business. This podcast is your invitation to where the real business happens, and also where the best ideas take place. So let's get behind the doors in business and break down these legal lessons. And overall, remember, don't skip the legal.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Nylund's Collision in Denver, Colorado. I am with my very good friend, Robert Grieve, the owner and the proprietor of Nylund's Collision
in great
Denver.
Day.
This is sort of our inaugurational journey here into the world of podcasting and interviews and the legal lessons associated with it. So
fun times.
I've given you a little bit of an introduction, but why don't you tell everybody about yourself, what you do here in Denver, and a little bit about your business.
I own Nylund's Collision Center with my lovely wife, Carol, who's not with us, as you can see. We repair collision-damaged vehicles, deal with all the insurance company nightmares, and get lots of help from my friend Andy.
That's good. I hope that you don't absolutely always need my help, but I guess that sort of brings in a really good segue into sort of our talking about our discussion here, but the utilization of an attorney doesn't always have to be in times of bad.
Correct.
Our relationship has always sort of been in good times. There have been definitely a few bad times. Without getting into any details about things, let's sort of talk about some of the good things. Like, where do you see in terms of the legal issues that you've had to deal with, generally speaking, as a business owner? I'd really sort of like to hear your story about why you decided to get involved in auto body and how you decided to choose this one and sort of your journey into where you are now, this absolutely beautiful facility that you've been in for about how long now?
January we moved in.
So almost coming up on a year. And I know you started off in much smaller space.
A hellhole up the street.
That's right. So there's been a long journey from the beginning of your business to where you are today. As now, how many years running now? The top body shop in the Denver area?
Oh, we've won the Denver A-list, I believe, 8 years in a row now.
That's great.
It's exciting.
So tell me how you sort of decided on this business and growing it, and start from the very beginning to where we are today.
I started in the business back in Jersey, wore a lot of different hats through my life, from working in a body shop, then working service departments, then running service parts and body shops, then running service parts and body shops for public companies, then to running dealerships back east. After that, went to Chrysler, worked at the big house in Michigan for a while, and then Michigan kind of went to hell in a handbag. We had a decision to make. Were we going to stay there or find something else to do? Were we going to go back to Jersey or spread our wings and try something completely different? So we decided to come to Colorado, buy a body shop. That was the easiest thing I had ever done, was run a body shop.
So how long ago was that when you decided to actually make the purchase into the body shop?
March will be 12 years.
Oh, wow. So coming up on 12 years. I mean, you didn't start this business from scratch, did you?
No, I purchased a specific business.
Okay, so tell us about why you sort of decided on going that route, purchasing a business that had already been in existence versus starting your own from scratch.
There's a few things I looked at. One of them was, how much work do they have now? What did their financials look like? So were they consistent? And what kind of cars were they working on? For the vast majority of my time, it's been luxury vehicles that I've been taking care of those types of guests. And it's really more about the guest experience for me than it is about fixing the car. Fixing the car is just one of those things. Being able to take care of people, that's a different dynamic.
Your objective is you want to help people overall, and the avenue that you have chosen to do that is through auto body repair.
And when you have an accident, you're in crisis mode. There's no handbook as to what to do next. And I enjoy helping people through that whole process.
So how did you actually find the business to buy in the first place?
I had a realtor. It's a funny story. I call him up because he sold my sister-in-law a house here in Colorado. And I said, yeah, I'm looking to buy a business. And naturally, we'll be looking to buy a house as well. So this realtor says, I don't do commercial. I said, that's fine. You do now, and we'll do this together. All I need you to be is my arms and legs in Colorado. Go find the businesses that are for sale. I'll fly out. I know contract law. It'll get me this far, and then we'll get all the head honchos involved. And my friend Jim Riss found me Nylund's.
Great.
Yep.
So let's talk about that. The process of buying a business. I mean, there's this whole area called due diligence. Why don't you sort of explain your process in determining whether Nylund's was the right business for you to be purchasing? What factors did you look at and what criteria was on your mind? I mean, you mentioned early on that your first criteria is you want to make sure that they have a good and existing book of business, that their books are good, so to speak. But why don't you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, I am fairly decent at accounting, so I scrub their books very hard looking for holes. I don't look for the good, I look for what's wrong with it, potential potholes. And couldn't really find much. It was a small business, very few employees. It was something I knew I could grow, and I could grow relatively quickly with my background.
Right.
So that's kind of why I picked Nylund's, and it had the vehicles. But here's the thing. They said they had a contract, which it's never really a contract, it's a handshake. And I know how you feel about handshake agreements.
I have an opinion.
Yeah. With a local Lexus dealer.
Okay.
And after all the papers signed and checks are passed back and forth, all the rest of that stuff, I find out that he kind of lost that, which I was counting on.
He lost the relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
And they weren't using him anymore. And the only way to find that out really was to be there and see what's going on. Now, I did this whole purchase from Michigan. I only came out here to close the deal. I saw the place twice, had the cars in it I was looking for, had the right equipment. He spent good money and had the best equipment that you can have. It's another thing to look at, especially in today. Today, it's far more important than it was back then, but he had the best of the best. So it just made me feel as though we got a good business going on here, and I'm not going to have to spend a bunch of capital trying to get the correct equipment and stuff. But they lost this relationship. How do you ever know that? You're not going to get somebody referring you business to sign a contract. I'm going to refer you business.
Well, let me ask you this question. When you were buying the business, were you buying it with the expectation that the company had this relationship with this Lexus group, which was a huge source of their revenue, and that was sort of what you were buying in addition to that?
Yeah, and I knew that I could grow that because I come from the dealership world. I speak their language. Consequently, that's how I got back in. Been a wonderful relationship since then. When you're buying a business, you think this, but that isn't necessarily what it's going to be. And sometimes if you have the ability to, I don't want to say stalk the place, but be there frequently to see if everything is what it's purported to be, great. I didn't have that opportunity.
Let me ask you this. So how did you learn that the relationship with this Lexus dealership had tattered and washed away?
Because I didn't see any Lexuses coming through the door.
Okay.
And if you have a relationship, I'm thinking in the first month or so, you'll see something. We did have a Lexus there, and I ordered the parts for it, and I'm talking to the parts guy, and I said, I don't see a bunch of stuff going through. And the parts guy is actually the guy that told me that, yeah, we're not sending business over there anymore. I'm like,
Interesting.
outstanding.
Right? So now when you learned this, had you already purchased the company?
I owned it at that point.
So this was something you found out after the fact.
After the fact.
All right. So on to sort of legal lesson number 2 here is how did you rebuild your relationship with that dealership in order to help bring in this sort of core and foundational recurring business for your company?
I went to the owner that I purchased it from. He had to stay on with me for a month or something like that.
Okay.
And during that month, I had learned that they're not doing that anymore. I said, okay. I said, you kind of misled me a little bit. You got to be frank.
Right.
So this is what I want you to do. I want you to call the guy over there. Tell him that you have new ownership here. Tell him that I want to take him and his wife, you and your wife, and I are going to go to the fort for dinner and just get to know each other. I don't know if anything's going to come out of it or not, but I want you to know who I am and what I bring to the table. And we had that dinner. It's been great ever since then. We grew that relationship.
And just sort of to set the record on that, you don't have to give the name of the dealership, but the dealership is one of the biggest Lexus dealerships in the state of Colorado, as I'm aware of them. And I know that even to this day, you still happen to have a phenomenal relationship with that company.
This is new news that you don't know about.
Okay.
I just sat down with the ownership and the senior management yesterday. They are going to open the floodgates to send everything here.
Oh, wow.
But there's been times through this relationship that the corporation, because they own several dealerships, put a body shop in one of their other dealerships and had to stop sending me business to keep it in their own company. And that put a hurting on us for a while. But I never stopped buying parts from them because we already had a Lexus base of people that were using us. So we still had Lexuses coming in, and I continued to purchase my parts from them and show my loyalty. And you know what? Nobody can do what I do when it comes to this business. So we earned it back.
That's great. And I think that a real valuable lesson that people can learn is just because a relationship deteriorates, there's no reason why you can't get it back.
Yeah, and if you want to be hateful and spiteful, well, then you're definitely going to flush the toilet on it.
Don't want to do that. Don't flush the toilet on business. It's your lifeline. Now, a little piece that I'm aware of, if maybe you could talk about it a little bit more. When you bought the company, you stayed in the building that the company had previously occupied.
Yes, I leased it.
You leased the building.
Took over the existing lease.
But the building was owned by the guy who sold you the business.
No, his brother owned the building. Steve owned the business. So I bought the business from Steve and paid his brother the rent and just signed a lease, basically, and took over the lease that was already in place.
Okay. Now, I know we had some difficulties with that lease.
To say the least.
To say the least.
To say the least.
And I'll have to go back and double check and make sure we're not breaching any confidences or anything before this goes public. But you did have some issues with the lease later on, and that's where you and I got introduced to one another.
It is exactly.
It was sort of about...
3 probably. But I'd already been doing business with your dad for many years before that. Dr. Bob.
Let's not bring in my dad's driving habits and how he helped you purchase this wonderful...
Let me show you the Dr. Bob wing over in the corner.
Exactly. I'm glad my father was able to help put your kids through college.
We're not done yet.
But anyway, getting back to the point, issue with the lease that you had signed and some difficulties in understanding of what the language in the lease actually meant. You did not, or maybe you did, I don't know the answer to this, but did you use an attorney to help guide you through the purchase of Nylund's at the inception of your business?
I did.
Okay. It doesn't matter, good or bad. How was the attorney able to help you through that process and make good decisions in the buying process of your business?
I don't really think he did.
Okay. And why do you think that?
I did all the talking.
Okay.
I did all the reading. I asked the questions. He said, yeah, don't worry about that. I don't see anything here that needs to be changed.
If you could go back and redo it, what type of involvement with a lawyer would you have hoped the lawyer had engaged a little bit more about?
I would have hoped that he would have taken the documents that I gave him and explained them to me. Are you sure you understand that this is what you're signing? Are you sure you understand that this is the way it's going to go and this is what your responsibilities are? And instead, I read the documents, underlined stuff, outlined my own questions, and answered them. I didn't find it to be that much of a help, to tell you the truth. Not like we would have done today. It's completely different today than it was then.
Concerning that lease extent, well, you had a lease extension, or there was a provision of the lease, and that led to a dispute between you and the landlord. If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay, so how that all came about, the building that I was leasing from him, I was only leasing 2/3 of it. The person that was in the other third left. I had written in the thing that I get the right of first refusal if that comes available. And so it came available. But it needed to be renovated and modified to fit our needs. Naturally, he wanted to have an extension on the lease, so he was putting some money into it. I put some money into it. Seemed very reasonable to me. Just go ahead, and we've agreed on the numbers and everything. You go ahead and write up a document and we'll just sign it together.
Who wrote up the document?
Pick me. Stop. Don't ever do that. It was a straightforward document that had what I wanted in it. But what it said and what it meant and what somebody else would perceive it means, I learned just a horrible lesson.
So what you put in the document you thought meant one thing.
Yeah.
What you put in the document landlord thought meant something completely different.
Yes.
Okay, and that's
But nobody asked a question when we signed it.
And I think I taught you a little lesson concerning what happens when you're the drafter of the agreement. What did you learn about that?
Don't do it, because I'm the author of the thing. I don't remember the rest of what you said, but it doesn't work in my favor.
Right. The lesson that you learned was...
if you're the author of the contract or agreement or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't help you if there's a problem with it seen from the other person's point of view.
If the contract is vague on terms and you're the drafter of the contract and lawyers aren't involved, it's expected that the contract is going to be construed against the drafter. In other words, any court that reviews the contract is going to construe it in favor of the person who didn't write it. The rationale behind that is if you put in something vague terms thinking one thing that could be advantageous to you but not the other person, that's not fair to the other person because they can't read your mind.
Oh, they can read the document.
Exactly. Yes, but when you have vague terms and things like that, and there was some vagueness in that document, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I believed it to mean one thing. He believed it to mean another thing.
But we were able to sit down, and we were able to sort of renegotiate those provisions and make it more tight. Really sort of tighten up, button up. He had an attorney at this point. You had me representing you at that point. It was really sort of this opportunity to correct the mistake that had been made. I think by this point it was 4 or 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
I think when I came on board.
And it was somewhat a catastrophe because me feeling as though I could get out of the contract at this time, I went and put a deposit on another building for $30,000, $40,000. Next thing you know, I can't get out of the lease. And he's going to sue me and take my home and everything.
Well, we did have a discussion about fighting the lease, about making an argument to get out of it, but we decided ultimately, or you decided ultimately, that that wasn't something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And what went into your decision not to pursue this from a legal standpoint, but to negotiate a resolution?
We chose to go to mediation. Between all the mediation going back and forth and the guy going this way and coming back over here and talking over there and coming back, I'm like, I was getting exhausted with the thing. And it didn't look like it was ever going to go in my favor. So I cut the best deal I could cut at the time. And I was pissed off about it.
And what about...
It was my mistake. I landed up staying another 4 years, I think. Yeah, it's just this contract stuff it's not necessarily what the thing says. It's how somebody interprets it.
And that brings up a really good point, which is, I tell people this all the time, contracts is based on mutual understanding. The legal definition of it is a meeting of the minds. What your intent is and what my intent is, and that we have accurately and adequately put it to paper to define what the nature of our relationship. If I don't know what your intent is and you don't know what my intent is, and we just throw words on a page and we sort of look at it and go, oh yeah, it looks the same, without having that conversation with one another, that becomes a problem. And that's where you run into those types of problems. And I think the lesson is, as much as you may not want to sit down and talk to your opposition in that, it's so very important that you do. Now, you built a good relationship, and there were other issues related to the building that we sort of built into the agreement as well. But you were able to get something out of it, and he was able to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And we sort of put this together where it satisfied both of your needs and gave you a compromise.
Yeah, well, everybody won and everybody lost.
Everybody won and everybody lost. And that's sort of the redefinition of compromise. And in retrospect, yeah, I mean, it was good for you because you got put in this position. You had an opportunity to get out at a certain time, but business wasn't ready. You weren't ready. The right place wasn't available. Coincidentally, here you are in this beautiful new building, which, in all irony, became available literally
the second we needed it.
The moment you needed it, when the lease was running up and you decided I was not going to renew after this period, the period that we had negotiated 5 years earlier, that it's now available, and boom, here it drops into your lap. It worked out really well.
Yeah. And then you and I did a wonderful job on buying this building. All the paper and stuff that goes along with buying commercial property is just crazy. And I appreciate your help going through those waters.
Well, let me ask you this. How was purchasing this building different than purchasing the business first time around?
I didn't really have any dealings with the state or the local municipalities or any of those types of people. When you buy a building, you got to make sure it's zoned correctly. Even if it's zoned correctly, you need to go and introduce yourself to the building department and say, hey, I'm looking to purchase this thing. Is everybody going to be okay with this? This is what I'm going to put there, and start to build a relationship with the town.
And is that what you did?
I did, yeah.
All right. So when you first decided that this was the building for you to move your business into, what were some of the first steps that you took?
We came over with you, and we walked the whole thing to make sure it was going to be suitable, put our vision glasses on and saw what it could be, and we looked for what the potential potholes are, like 28 underground tanks and oil all over the place. And
oh, yes. And the cleanup was
extensive.
Crazy. The building had previously been owned by a fuel or petroleum distribution company.
That's right.
So the laws related to underground storage tanks were significant.
Yep, and the removal of them.
To put it mildly, there was going to be a lot of fixing up that had to be done with this building.
Yeah.
You were not going to take on that endeavor, were you?
No.
Exactly.
No. That became part of the contract.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit.
And they had a clear understanding.
You made it very clear. You want to buy the building, but one of the conditions was they had to remove the underground tanks, and you said there were 28 of them?
28.
The owner of the building, the seller, had to take on the cost of removing those. And that was not something that you were willing to take on.
No, because I didn't know anything about it. I wouldn't have any idea who to hire to do it and what the potential problems could be. I needed somebody else to have that. And then if something fell apart, I could get out of the contract. I'm not doing it myself. They're doing it.
That was not an expense that you were willing to undertake. I mean, we negotiated the price of the building a little bit, but one of the conditions was if you're going to buy it, they have to remove those tanks.
Yes.
And they had to bear the cost of making some of the improvements to the property that were important to you.
Most of it was around the tanks because it was not only the cost, which the cost was scaring me to death, but it's about the liability. It's about how do you get certified that it's all done right, not have a problem down the road. I don't want to buy a worthless piece of property either that's been contaminated and so on and so forth. I didn't know enough about it, so I put it on their shoulders, and we weren't going to purchase the building without having a sign-off from the EPA and from the state that we are clean.
And that was one of the requirements to closing.
Yes.
That not only did they have to remove the tanks, but we had to get an EPA certification that it was clean.
Signed off and clean.
That the tanks didn't leak. And
no further action letter, it's called.
Exactly.
No further action required letter.
All good stuff. And I mean, you got really lucky. These tanks were in good shape. There had been no ground contamination.
Yep.
Removed everything.
Or you could say they got lucky.
Or they got lucky.
Because they would have had the expense and no buyer.
That's right. One of the other things that we had to deal with was access to the property. So we had easement issues.
That's another thing. Now that you own a commercial piece of property, do you have the right access for the fire department? Right. And what can they come in and do? What can the water department come in and do? There's just so many things when you're buying a commercial piece of property that you have to know that there's no book on how to know.
So learn by experience, but it becomes a hefty price to pay if you screw it up. So what did you do to learn about the requirements that you were going to have now as a commercial building owner, a very large building in a commercial industrial space in one of the local cities?
I talked to a lot of people, you being one of them.
Right.
Even a couple of your friends, you had me talk to them as well. I spent a lot of time at the building department asking them questions and being involved in the process of what renovations we had to do and what was going to be code. And I had contractors on site, from putting up booths to re-outfitting the electrical of the place and plumbing needs. And so I picked all their brains as they were here as to, what kind of potholes, because I was renovating this place before I owned it. That was a handshake deal.
Yeah. The owners were very kind, but is it okay to do a handshake deal under some circumstances? Absolutely. But you don't do something huge on a handshake.
Well, our handshake deal was I can come in and renovate the place even though I don't own it. They didn't charge me any rent or anything. I promised them I was not going to conduct business in it until such times as I actually purchased it. But I needed to get the place cleaned up and I needed to get the electrical done because I only had a month left before I had to get out of the other facility. The handshake deal was, yes, you can go ahead and do all that. I mean, it needed new heaters, it needed new everything. And I had an inspection done from an outside party that also led me to know that I needed new heaters and so on and so forth.
And an American flag.
Absolutely. That was the first thing to go up. God bless America. So the big thing came with that handshake deal is that if the deal fell apart for any reason and we were not going to close on it, they get my improvements that I've made to it. You know what? I had to be out in 30 days. Sometimes you just got to believe in yourself. Yeah. Shake hands on it, move forward, and just make it happen.
Let's take a moment to acknowledge the importance of legal knowledge in the business world. Legal issues can be a minefield, but they don't have to be. That's why I am thrilled to introduce you to a resource that will be your guiding light through these challenges. Get ready to discover the ultimate legal companion for entrepreneurs. I am excited to introduce you to Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, your ultimate companion for conquering the legal challenges of entrepreneurship. It is authored by me, Andy Contaguglia, a seasoned business lawyer based here in Denver, Colorado. This book is your roadmap to navigating the legal landscape with confidence. Inside, you'll find valuable insights on choosing the right business entity, understanding fiduciary duties, tackling financing options, hiring employees, and even nailing down the perfect business name and location. But that's not all. You can get your hands on this essential guide in both Kindle and paperback form, making it super convenient for you. If you're ready to empower your business with knowledge, head over to Amazon, head over to Kindle, and grab your copy of Don't Skip the Legal today. For more details and updates, visit don'tskipthelegal.com, and don't let the legal hold you back in succeeding in business. With Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, you can take your business to new heights. Available on Amazon and Kindle. Now let's get back to the pod.
But that comes after 12 years of instinct. You've built a lot of instinct and you can read people real well and you come from the industry and sometimes you have to take risks.
But I'd never bought a commercial piece of property before.
Right. And there was certainly some issues with what happens if things don't happen. I mean, we had to hedge our bets a little bit on some things.
A little bit, but they were risks we were willing to take, and they weren't extraordinary.
But there did come some issues with the landlord on your old building. As you were sort of phasing out of there, he wanted to know, hey, are you going to stay? That created its own set of issues. What came up concerning that?
He obviously wanted me to stay and was going to do everything that I would want to do. I outgrew the place years before. There was no way that I was going to stay. And he made it perfect for me, and I owe him a debt of gratitude because he pushed me over the edge. He said, your lease is up. I'm raising your rent. An additional $3,000 from the $9,000 that I was paying. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to be moving on. And he says, well, you have to be out by the end of the month. Well, we hadn't found this place yet. So I had to extend the month deal, which he didn't want to do. Finally talked him into doing that. And it cost me another $1,000 a month.
We can't think of what's going on in his mind, but why was that a good deal for you? What were you able to do under those circumstances?
We had 70 cars on the lot. What was I going to do with them? They're all 70 wrecked cars or in process of being fixed or whatever. I couldn't just get out without having a place to go. So I, once again, was in the corner with the guy and had to pay him what he wanted.
But it was a win-win for both of you because arguably you could have just said, fine, I'm going to take everything, throw it into a storage unit, go find a place, and your building's going to be vacant. I mean, you were able to capitalize on the fact that he had nobody to come in and take your place.
Absolutely.
Which meant we can either work together, and I'm happy to
give you
stay.
some time.
I can give you time to find somebody. We were doing this about October, November of last year, 2016.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so he needed some time. He didn't have somebody who was just going to come in. He needed to find a new tenant. You were ready to go, but it was like, hey, until I get there, I need a place to stay. Until you get there, you need a tenant.
Let's put this thing together.
Yeah, let's make it.
And so, once
happen.
again, not everybody was happy, but not everybody was sad either.
But it was a good business move and a good compromise.
For both.
For everybody.
Yeah.
It's not always about trying to crush the other person. It's about relationships. It's about trying to make it a win-win for everybody. Be successful in building that, then it can help you out and you may gain something. In the end, if you had just sort of had this vision of tomorrow or today, you would have maybe lost out. But when the vision is, I need something for the rest of my life or the next 5-10 years, what am I going to do?
You got to think the long game. The short game is going to be here and gone. You got to think the long game. That's what we're able to do. Going back to buying this piece of property, before we found this, we actually found another piece of property that was a bigger piece of property, had several buildings on it. We could have made it work. It was zoned correctly. So we're like, great. Signed a contract, give the earnest money. I'm doing a little digging. Called a town, just like I did here.
Right.
Said, can we have a get-together so I can talk to you about what we're going to do? And so the gal on the other end of the phone said, yeah, what's that property address? And I gave her the address, and she goes, yeah, it's zoned correctly, but are you going to do any improvement? I said, well, I have to put a paint booth in and stuff. She goes, yeah, the fire department's not going to allow that. And I said, well, what does the fire department have to say about me buying this piece of property and putting up a paint booth? She goes, there's no fire hydrant within a reasonable distance. I believe it's 600 feet or 400 feet, something like that. And because of that, they can shut it down. So now I'm scrambling to get out of that contract and get my money back. And during that, this came up, which had city water, fire hydrant on the corner over there. I walked it off, went to the building department. Is this enough? It's crazy what I learned.
2.5 seconds to walk from here to my front door. Is this acceptable? Is this okay?
But the building department was a great asset. You just ask them whatever, and they're happy to answer you. They appreciate somebody coming and asking the questions, and rather than having to come and say, no, you can't do that.
Right. Do your homework ahead of time. Don't just go into these deals and into these events thinking that everything is going to be hunky-dory. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the front end. All the due diligence you do when you're buying the business, all the due diligence you're doing before you are moving your business, all the due diligence you're going to be doing before you buy a building.
Not only that, but if you make friends with the people that are going to be important to it, whether it be your banking people or your building department or the vendors that are building it out for you, you need all that.
Okay, so let's draw a conclusion to all of this. One more thing I wanted to sort of bring up that I think is an important issue. Your body shop doesn't own this building, does it?
No.
So let's talk about how you decided from a strategic standpoint, from a business standpoint, not only for your business, but for you personally, how you decided to structure things relative to this building in that respect.
There's a few things that went into that. There's different levels of protection that I was looking for. God forbid I was sued, it'd be difficult to take everything all at once. And principles that are involved, meaning people. So when it comes to Nylund's, I own Nylund's 100%. When it comes to the building, which is under a completely different corporation, Carol and I own that together. We wanted to have both of us owning this, one person owning that. It just moves the playing field around.
And so your business pays you rent.
Yes, it's another business. We got ourselves another business.
So that's great. So you structure it so even though you're the owner of both of them, the nice thing is you have income coming into your body shop business, into Nylund's, but then you also have Nylund's, the tenant, and you are also individually the landlord, or you and Carol together in that other business as the landlord. Money comes in, so you're generating income on two different levels, which
yes,
is a great
and
thing
we're
for
moving
you.
Money from here over to there. We're making less money over here because the rent here is much bigger than it was at the old place.
We have to have a talk with the landlord about that.
Yeah, well, he's, not an easy guy to get along with sometimes. But yeah, it was about levels of protection. It's about having two businesses and having the people that you want to be involved in the contract or the company.
Overall, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned on this journey to where you are today, 12 years after the start?
The most important thing that I would say is get to know your attorney, spend time with them. We get together at least once a month, if not more often than that, just to have a glass of wine and a cigar or whatever the case may be. And we talk about what's going on in each other's lives. In those conversations come what I know and have happened in my life and have learned from. Same thing in yours. Mm-hmm. And we help each other. But you have an idea of what I have going on and what we're going through and how good things are going and maybe not so good sometimes. And you always have some great advice, and maybe we need to relook at how we're proposing this or how this document's laid out. And our contract is almost a living document. We keep changing it because the atmosphere keeps changing and we have to adapt to it.
That's part of business, I think. If you can't ebb and flow when things are moving, you're going to have problems. I think that there is a nature or a part of you in business that has to adapt to new things. You may have a plan
and you have to forecast them too.
Absolutely. You have to
Andy, I see this coming down the road for this industry. Well, then we ought to create this or we ought to do this to protect yourself from that. Spending that time and having those candid conversations just for an hour or two, it's been priceless.
So if you could give one single piece of business advice to somebody who's running a company or starting a company, an entrepreneur, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Become friends with your lawyer.
Okay. I appreciate that.
No, it's the truth, because you need what we as business owners think is common sense does not necessarily go along with what judges and juries think. As common sense. There's this interpretation that happens whether it's in a situation or in a document. And what I think is perfectly common sense, you're like, yeah, no, not so much. You really need to go at it from this angle. That kind of conversation's priceless.
Right. Do you think people should involve lawyers in their business? Should they wait until a problem arises? Or do you think that this is something that a lawyer should just be part of their team that they are including throughout their daily operations?
Certainly not daily, certainly once a month or at least once a quarter, sit down and just talk about what's going on, and yes, involve them. I don't care what business you're in, it's changing. Right. And if your business or industry isn't changing, the people that are buying or using it are changing. So there's so many different things that are changing all the time. You have to be on top of it. And from a legal perspective, it's good to have somebody that knows the law and can keep you out of trouble. Now, there's going to be those times that something weird happens. You get that phone call that it could be what they're paging me for, that just blows you out of the water and nobody ever saw that coming. Now you're on the phone with your attorney. Right. Because nobody could foresee that. You got to have somebody that's willing to take that call at the same time.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time, and I know that you have to get back to business here, but why don't you tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, where they can find you, social media, your website. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to find out more about your business, more about what you do?
The easiest way to even get to know us or communicate with us is via Facebook/Nylund's. You can always call at 303-761-9219. We have our website, nylundscollision.com. But Facebook is really our centerpiece. And there's another piece of advice. If you're in an industry, in order to see outside of our box that we live in all day long, join some Facebook groups that are part of your industry. It's going to give you a better insight from what's going on outside of your little area. Right. Whether it's happening in New York or California or just a couple of states away, things evolve and change and they kind of come your way, or maybe you're in the forefront and you can share it with them, but that gives you also more to talk about with your attorney.
More ideas.
And your accountants and everybody else.
And that's another conversation for another time. We'll definitely hit on that. Well, thank you, sir.
Oh,
Always
God bless you.
a pleasure to see you, man.
You're a rock star.
And we'll definitely catch up soon. Thanks a lot.
God bless.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Skip the Legal podcast. I'm your host, Andy Contaguglia. I hope you enjoyed our time together and this great opportunity to peek behind the business door and examine the legal lessons in business. If you're keen to hear how these lessons can be applied in the real world, well, join us next week for another episode where you can listen in to another business success story. As always, you can head over to contaguglia.com/podcast to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at AJCESQ. Thanks again. This is Andy Contaguglia reminding you to don't skip the legal. Good luck. The legal information contained in this podcast is intended for general informational and entertainment purposes only. It should only be used as a starting point for addressing your specific legal issue. The legal information I talk about does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and me. This podcast is not a substitute for an in-person or telephonic consultation with a lawyer who is licensed to practice in your jurisdiction about your specific legal issue, and you should not rely on this legal information for those purposes. You understand that questions and answers or other information contained in this podcast are not confidential and are not subject to attorney-client privilege. I am not providing you a legal service. Every legal case is different, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Please consult your own attorney.